Come on! Unity is a web series filmed and edited by Emily Jansen as she lives in her vehicle, traveling the United States and documenting the many other types of alternative living, exposing audiences to the growing change in perspective and lifestyle for a common unity.
The land was purchased in the early 70s by a group of 9 people from nearby Columbia, Missouri. My dad was one of them. At that point, they were talking and they were thinking about joining the Back to the Land movement and getting a piece of property, and so they all kind of pooled their money. They came out to this piece of property. It's 310 acres. At its high point, there were 25 people living out here, but it fell apart for a couple of reasons. There was a group that splintered off because they wanted to follow different spiritual teachings. Not everybody was down with that. And then there were still a few people here, but then the final straw was they decided to build a nuclear power plant about 8 miles away. I was born out here on the land. My dad delivered me. And then when I was 4, it was just a few months before the reactor went online. That's when we moved out. We never got rid of the land, though. It's set up as a land trust so you can never profit from it. In the end, my dad and 2 other guys ended up buying everybody else out, and then I've been buying into the land trust and I have voting rights. They love what I'm doing out here, though. It's great. They support everything. When I was in college, I got an internship at AOL. I knew what the starting salary was, and it was really good. I realized I was being kind of offered a really high leg up in the American dream. But I was working in a cubicle with other people who seemed like their spirit had been eroded over time, and I could look at them and see where I was heading. And that was the moment I realized that I didn't care if I made a lot of money, and I kind of felt like people are envious of these people's jobs. But seeing it was like, okay, I don't want this. So what do I want? I didn't want to be part of the problem anymore. I wanted to be part of the solution. So that was kind of it. I started researching what I could do, how I could live as lightly as possible. People come out, at this point they come out and say, hey, that's not that bad. I mean, I don't have all of my systems up and running. I don't have serious running water yet. It's not where I want it to be, but I want people to come out and be like, hey, I could do this. This is comfortable. I can handle this. Right now I still get a lot of, that's great that you're doing it, but I couldn't do it. And I keep thinking, you could, you just don't want to at this point. But if you see what it's going to be, then you would reconsider it. My idea was to have a community and just kind of build it from the ground up, off-grid, people with different skill sets all working together. Try to be as self-sufficient as possible, sharing resources. Does everyone really need a microwave? Do we even need a microwave at all? There's a lot of things that we wouldn't need to replicate. Our current culture, everybody has to have one of everything because that's a lot more products that can be sold. I like to think of the way that I live out here and the way that most self-sufficient people, or people aiming for self-sufficiency, we're kind of part of the transition movement. We're paving the paths for the mass migration that's going to happen once people realize that, sea levels are really rising, their cities are going to be flooded, we have to seriously change. I'd like to hope that we would figure that out, humanity as a whole would figure that out without being forced to do it, but necessity is the mother of change. So I have a feeling it's going to be once things start to get really bad that people will start taking this a lot more seriously and there will be a lot more people doing it. My experience with people living in community is that we're such a diverse group of people now. Everyone who wants to live in a community, they didn't all start off in the same neighborhood. They're coming from all different countries, states, city, rural, and are coming together with vastly different perspectives and different ideas of what they want to happen. And we're trying to create a new culture, but we are trying to mesh so many different cultures at one time. It's really disheartening. People don't know how to deal with conflict yet. I mean, these are all things that can be learned, but I feel like it has to be something that develops generationally. There's so much that happens in your developmental years that I feel like in some way we're all kind of scarred from this unsustainable lifestyle. That's just my perspective on it. If people are able to overcome that and live communally, more power to them now, but I feel like in general most Americans at least, it's too much at one time. I also think that for a community to succeed, unfortunately it goes back to money. We want to be self-sufficient, but there's no way we can make everything. So you're going to have to interact with the society as a whole, and so you're going to need money. Or you need something to exchange with society. So you have to produce something or have services that you render. And so I think at the core you see the communities that make it have some sort of business, whether they're making peanut butter or hammocks. Those are the communities that have the best track record of success, because otherwise you have people that are either having to commute, or a lot of the financial burden gets placed on a few people who do have jobs, and those people get bitter because they don't want to be doing those jobs. They'd much rather be on the land. I think having a business where everybody can chip in some way on it is really kind of key to having a community work well over the long run. I think for people starting out, it's much better to start off having a tomato in a pot, even just something really small, because the thing that continues to drive me are the successes that I have. Do something fun, even like making beer or wine is really popular, especially something that you can share with other people. Maybe even work your way up to chickens and being able to have fresh eggs and share those. The excitement of getting to share it with other people seems to be the thing that really feeds back into you, and it also gets other people excited about it too. It's kind of how it goes viral. I think we're seeing that. Seed suppliers are running out of seeds because gardening's really kind of taking off. All these microbreweries, those were all people making beer in their homes at some point. So it's starting, but I think that's how you do it. You just pick one little thing and you do it, and then that encourages you to do the next thing, and it just kind of baby steps. But you gotta take that first step. That self-satisfaction you get. I get done at the end of a day working on a project, and I'll just pull up a chair and just sit there and look at what I've done, just like, pop open a home brew and, yeah, I did that.